we're uncovering the new strategy at the White House to insulate President Biden from problems here at home and turn him into a more king-like figure, a noble figure, a man removed from the media and far more concerned with looking like a head of state overseas than a typical American president that we've expected in the modern age. Again, this isn't just a theory of ours. There's real reporting behind what's happening. Consider today. There's actually good news to celebrate on the economy. Inflation appears to be easing just a bit. We haven't heard from the president. Senators will be briefed next week on newly leaked classified American documents showing American and British special forces operating in Ukraine, among lots of other American secrets. We haven't heard from the president. The Biden administration today announced a major change in emission standards that will radically change how we buy cars and who we buy them from, that will greatly benefit the Chinese. We'll talk about that later, but we haven't heard from the president. I could go on and on and on. The president still hasn't even formally addressed the press since his predecessor got indicted. None of this is an accident for a man who has given a fraction of the interviews and press conferences of any modern president. Speaking of press conferences, the White House says Mr. Biden won't address the American press corps during his 4-day trip to Ireland. It's filled with photo ops, just none where he talks to the press. For reference, a press conference overseas is about as traditional for American presidents as you get. And let's be honest, it is easy at times like this to say it's just the press making it about themselves. And to be fair, there is no more self-aggrandizing group of people than the White House press corps. But this story isn't about access. It's about a man with a strategy to redefine what being president actually means. Professor Lauren Wright is with us from Princeton University in a minute. We start with Blake Burman and his reporting about the strategy from the White House. Blake, I should acknowledge that we were both White House correspondents at a time. You now the chief Washington correspondent. So self-aggrandizing, present company excluded.
All right. Well, I'll take it from here, Leland. You're right, though, when it comes to this issue of the president and press conferences. The White House was really put on the defense leading into this trip about why there isn't going to be a press conference. 20, 30, 40 minutes and availability with the president over a multi-day trip overseas. There was a very tense moment in the briefing room leading up to all of this with the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, in which she was asked point blank, is the White House trying to protect President Biden? And this was her response.
Is the administration trying to protect the president from our questions? Please answer that question.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
So why the lack of any interaction in a formal setting to have a press conference?
I mean, the president takes shouted questions. I understand, John. I understand. I understand. I've dealt with this question about 3 times already.
Take a look at this real quick, something that caught our eye earlier today. It's the official transcript from the press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. She was briefing reporters aboard Air Force One en route to the UK. This happens all the time. She was asked about this again. She made the argument that the president has taken more questions from the press than his predecessors. But you see those lines there, 3 different lines? The official transcript shows that they struck her original answer and then changed it afterwards to a different metric, clearly trying to figure out their response here, Leland. President Biden, though, we should mention, he did take questions from the press before he left on this trip. It was before he got aboard Air Force One. It was on 3 different topics, and it lasted a total of 1 minute. I should note, Leland, that this idea of the president not answering questions isn't really specific to the administration as a whole. For example, just yesterday, the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin, the Secretary of State Anthony Blinken were here in Washington with their counterparts from the Philippines. There was a press conference. 3 different reporters from the U.S. able to ask those 2 cabinet-level secretaries multiple questions about some of the big topics of the day. But as it relates to the president on this trip, it ain't going to happen, Leland.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.